People of the world, please listen carefully. This is a message from a dedicated member of Anonymous. As most of you know, there is a pandemic involving Ebola surfacing once again. This virus is extremely deadly and seems to be a new strain that is even harder to control. As you will see, if you are willing to spend some time researching, there are several known strains to this virus where the most deadly and prominent is the Zaire Ebola virus. The Zaire Ebola virus was first discovered in 1976 along the Ebola River in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, or Zaire. In 1976, there were 318 reported cases of the Zaire Ebola virus where 280 people had died. This is an 88% mortality rate, which is extremely high. While there have been several reports of the Ebola virus circulating throughout the world since 1976, the numbers for the most part have been very low and insignificant. There have, however, been several other outbreaks of Ebola which have been significant, and I will report those here to make a point. In 1976 also, there was an outbreak of a different strain of Ebola called the Sudan Ebola virus. This was reported originally in a town called Zaire in South Sudan. There were 284 reported cases of the virus, where 151 people died. From 1977 to 1994, there were less than 100 reported cases of Ebola, which were all in different regions of Africa. In 1995, however, the Zaire Ebola virus once again surfaced in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, with significant numbers equaling 315 reported cases and 250 deaths. An 81% mortality rate. From the year 2000 to 2001, there was a sudden increase in the numbers, as 425 cases were reported in 2000, and an additional 122 more in 2001, where 320 people died. Again, a very high percentage of deaths. Next, in 2002, there was another outbreak in Bomo, a town again in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. This outbreak, however, had the highest mortality rate, where out of 143 reported cases, 128 people had died. An 89% mortality rate. The highest so far. In 2007, reports from Luebo, a town again in the Congo, showed 264 cases of the Zaire Ebola virus with 187 deaths, while in Bundibugyo in Uganda, there were 149 cases of the Bundibugyo Ebola virus with only 37 deaths. As you can see, the Zaire Ebola virus is far more deadly. You will notice that the numbers compared to the amount of possible infections still remain very low, although still very deadly. It also seems by the mortality rates that we have not found a way to properly diagnose and or treat this virus. Keep in mind that because of this, if this virus was to escape Africa and travel to the rest of the world, the results would be devastating. To get to the point of this discussion, I will now show you the figures for 2014 starting in March. In the countries of Guinea, Liberia, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone, which are again all in Africa, there is an explosion of what the CDC is claiming to be the Zaire Ebola virus once again. The numbers as of September 21, 2014, according to their website found here at www.cdc.gov, report 3,095 reported cases, where so far, 1,590 people have died. This is a 51% mortality rate, and the numbers are still being adjusted. So, this leads me to ask the question of why is there all of a sudden a huge increase in the numbers of a virus we are so familiar with? To answer my own question, and most likely yours, I will head in the direction of what most would call conspiracy. The Illuminati, which was once thought to not even exist by most, have been brazenly stating for decades that they desire to lower the world's population to 10% of what it is today, to make the people more manageable as they attempt to take over the world, which, if you have been paying any attention at all, is happening right now. If you don't believe this to be possible, then perhaps you should open your eyes and ask yourself how the same people, if not out to accomplish this, could have killed 3,000 of their own people in a false flag event by blowing up the World Trade Center. This was done so they could start a war with Iraq and slowly get you used to us being in constant battle with fabricated terrorists. They have steadily been taking away your rights not only as an American or European but also as a human. Soon, if you survive either this Ebola outbreak, which I feel very strongly has been engineered to be even more deadly, or the soon-to-come World War, you will be a slave to the elite and will be under the same working and living conditions now present in much of mainland China. Our police are now an oppressive military force with the right to do as they please with little reprimand, except when organizations like Anonymous get involved, such as the Ferguson shooting case. We cannot save the world alone. We need your help. You must stand and defend your rights and the future of your children. It is time. Going back to the Ebola virus, this virus, according to reports from the CDC, if they are even correct and not fabricated themselves, state that the way most people caught the virus was by attending funerals of the deceased, or by treating the infected while not properly protecting oneself. Also, they claim that bats, which are a food source in parts of Africa, are carriers and contribute to the spread of the virus. This I doubt, because bats spend much of their time in close proximity and there would be more carriers, hence more outbreaks in humans. Also, this meat is either cooked or smoked at high temperature, which would kill any virus, although handling the raw meat could contribute. Either way, the African people have been dealing with this Ebola virus since 1976, and surely they would be aware of the possibilities and would take precautions. Also, doctors would be looking immediately for the Ebola virus instead of, we'll say, the flu, due to very similar symptoms in the beginning of the infection as in the past. This would at least allow the numbers of the infected and or mortality rate to be much lower and not all of a sudden soar to epic proportions. In Canada, they have been experimenting on the Ebola virus for some time on non-human primates and piglets. The piglets were inoculated with the Zaire strain of Ebola and placed in cages separate from the primates with no physical contact, but, within days, the primates started showing signs of Ebola, leading them to believe that the virus, previously believed to be transmitted by physical contact alone, was now airborne. This airborne transmission would be in the form of moisture droplets, very much like we can catch a cold from someone sneezing on or near us. I will quote a section of the website I used as a reference, which is www.healthmap.org. The team, comprised of researchers from the National Center for Foreign Animal Disease, the University of Manitoba, and the Public Health Agency of Canada, observed transmission of Ebola from pigs to monkeys. They first inoculated a number of piglets with the Zaire strain of the Ebola virus. Ebola Zaire is the deadliest strain, with mortality rates up to 90%. The piglets were then placed in a room with 4 cynomolgus macaques, a species of monkey commonly used in laboratories. The animals were separated by wire cages to prevent direct contact between the species. Within a few days, the inoculated piglets showed clinical signs of infection indicative of Ebola infection. In pigs, Ebola generally causes respiratory illness and increased temperature. 9 days after infection, all piglets appeared to have recovered from the disease. Within 8 days of exposure, 2 of the 4 monkeys showed signs of Ebola infection. 4 days later, the remaining 2 monkeys were sick too. It is possible that the first 2 monkeys infected the other 2, but transmission between non-human primates has never before been observed in a lab setting. End quote. A link to the article is available in the description below, but, in case this video gets removed, just Google, "from pigs to monkeys, Ebola goes airborne" and you will find it. Do notice that the mortality rate is up to 90%, which would, if released on the world's population, be the perfect virus to get the population down to the desired 10%. Coincidence? I wonder. To end this conversation before you get too bored, I will say to you, regardless if I am right or not, which I hope I am wrong, the safest thing to do now would be to stay clear of large gatherings, especially in the cities where cases in the US are already being reported. A message to Anons or members of Anonymous. You are planning the Million Mask March all over the world on November 5th. This would be the perfect place to release this virus on the world, which would also give them a reason to blame Anonymous, or at least members, which would allow them to finally label you as more than just cyber terrorists. Also, we are enemies of the state, and as in all battles, it is beneficial to strike at massive gatherings of the enemy to eliminate more of them at once. Please give it serious thought. No, I do not work for the government, and this message is not to frighten anyone away from marching in these rallies. I just think you should be informed of the possibilities. I am a full supporter of the anonymous movement, including movements like Occupy Wall Street. If you want to catch a criminal, you must think like one. I am an anonymous member. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.